For years, magazines asked why Jennifer Aniston had never become a mother, as though her private life were a mystery the public had already solved. America knew the smile of Rachel Green, but behind it, time was narrowing around a hope no camera could capture. The world mistook her silence for a choice. She brought laughter, vulnerability, and comfort into millions of homes, then spent decades proving she was far more than one beloved role. Yet while audiences celebrated her success, strangers quietly wrote a harsher story about the family she never had. And now, at 57, even after revealing part of the truth, that old judgment has never fully disappeared. How did a woman who tried so hard become known as someone who never wanted a family? Before we begin, honor Jennifer Aniston with a like, a quiet tribute to a woman who reclaimed the right to define when a life is complete. Silence became Jennifer Aniston's first inheritance. She was born on February 11, 1969, in Sherman Oaks, California, to actors John Aniston and Nancy Dow. From the outside, it was a childhood close to Hollywood. Inside the home, however, Jennifer learned early that a family could change without giving a child the words to understand why. When she was 9, her parents divorced. The routines she knew were broken, and the young girl was left to make sense of absence, tension, and the silences adults leave unexplained. Jennifer later described how deeply those early years affected her. She was a child learning to understand change before she had the words to explain it. The silence she experienced would become something she carried into adulthood. That silence followed her into her relationship with her mother. Nancy Dow had worked as an actress and model, and Jennifer later recalled that her mother could be critical, especially about appearance. A face, a body, a small imperfection. These became subjects of judgment in a home where Jennifer longed for reassurance. Years later, Jennifer looked back on that relationship with more understanding, recognizing her mother's own struggles while still acknowledging the impact those moments had on her. The comments did not vanish when childhood ended. They remained inside her, teaching her how easily love and criticism could occupy the same room. Years later, Jennifer would become famous for a smile that made millions feel at ease. Yet behind that warmth was a woman who had learned young how to hide discomfort and keep moving. The wound deepened when private family tensions became public. Nancy spoke about their relationship in interviews and, in 1999, published From Mother and Daughter to Friends. By then, Jennifer's face was appearing in homes across America. But another version of her life was now sitting on bookstore shelves. A private distance between mother and daughter had been given a title, a cover, and an audience. Strangers could hold the story in their hands before Jennifer had chosen the words to tell it herself. Fame could protect a career, yet it could not close that book or return the family wound to the privacy of the room where it began. The distance between them widened. Jennifer did not answer with a competing account. She stepped back, and the silence that had once surrounded her childhood became the only boundary she could still control. Forgiveness came much later, and it did not arrive as a clean ending. Jennifer gradually began to see her parents as imperfect people carrying disappointments of their own. But understanding them did not undo what had happened. The divorce remained. The criticism remained. The knowledge that a private bond had once been opened to strangers remained. When she eventually spoke about forgiveness, it sounded less like reconciliation with the past than a decision to stop allowing that past to enter every room ahead of her. She could release some of the anger without calling the wound harmless. She could move forward without pretending that trust had never been broken. The child who once watched her family divide grew into a woman whose private life would be examined by millions. Perhaps that is why Jennifer became so skilled at offering the world laughter while protecting the grief it could not see. Her childhood taught her the cost of being misunderstood and the quiet strength required to forgive without pretending the pain had never existed. Before millions knew her as Rachel Green, Jennifer Aniston spent years as an unknown actress, fighting for a chance that never seemed guaranteed. Long before she became one of television's most recognizable stars, Jennifer faced years of auditions, uncertainty, and rejection while trying to build a career in Hollywood. Her journey was shaped by training, patience, and the difficult years when her talent existed long before the world fully recognized it. Jennifer studied at New York's Waldorf School before attending Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts. At LaGuardia, acting became the place where her natural ability began to take shape. Under acting coach Anthony Abison, she developed her skills and discovered the power of comedy. During a Chekhov exercise, classmates laughed during her performance, and Jennifer initially believed they were laughing at her. Abison later helped her understand that the reaction came from her natural comedic ability, giving her one of the earliest moments of confidence in her path as a performer. Jennifer graduated in 1987 and entered Hollywood at a time when talent alone did not guarantee opportunity. Before fame arrived, she supported herself through ordinary jobs, including waiting tables, working as a telemarketer, and delivering packages as a bicycle messenger in Manhattan. These years were part of the unseen struggle behind her career. When pursuing acting required commitment without any certainty that recognition would ever come. Her early acting journey was filled with opportunities that failed to become breakthroughs. She appeared in Mac and Me in 1988 and later worked on projects including Malloy, Ferris Bueller, Camp Cucamonga, The Edge, Muddling Through, and Leprechaun. Several television projects ended after short runs, forcing her to continue searching for the role that could finally change the direction of her career. The hardest part was never one rejection. It was the repetition. Jennifer lived through the quiet years when nobody knew her name, waiting for auditions, returning home without certainty, and continuing because the dream mattered more than the disappointment. One audition followed another. One project ended, and another opportunity had to be found. Years passed while Jennifer continued gaining experience in roles that rarely brought lasting recognition. Behind the future success of Friends was a long period when she had the ability, the training, and the determination, yet still waited for the opportunity that would allow audiences to truly see her. After several unsuccessful television projects, Jennifer reached a point where she questioned whether continuing in the industry was the right decision. Around this time, she met Warren Littlefield, then president of NBC Entertainment, at a Los Angeles gas station. Jennifer shared her concerns about her career, and Littlefield encouraged her to continue pursuing acting. He could not promise what would happen next, but he offered something meaningful at that moment: the belief that she should keep going. He directed her toward a new comedy project being developed by NBC. That project became Friends. Jennifer was initially considered for the role of Monica Geller, before being cast as Rachel Green, the character that would transform her career and become part of television history. The actress who once worked everyday jobs while waiting for her opportunity eventually became one of the most recognized performers in the world. The years before Friends remain one of the most important chapters of Jennifer Aniston's story. They reveal the part of success audiences rarely see: the years of preparation, rejection, uncertainty, and persistence before recognition finally arrives. Before she became Rachel Green, she was a young actress whose value was not yet widely recognized, but who continued moving forward because she believed in the work she had chosen. Rachel Green gave Jennifer Aniston the kind of success most actors spend a lifetime hoping to find. She also gave her a shadow that followed every role that came afterward. When Friends premiered in 1994, Jennifer brought humor, warmth, and emotional honesty to a young woman learning how to stand on her own. Over 10 seasons, Rachel became one of the most recognizable characters in American television. The role brought Jennifer an Emmy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and a Screen Actors Guild Award, while the final seasons placed the cast among the highest-paid performers in television history. Yet the greater the success became, the harder it was for audiences to separate the actress from the woman she played. Rachel's hairstyle became a cultural phenomenon. Her clothes were copied. Her romantic life was discussed as though it belonged to the public. Jennifer had created a character millions loved, But that love carried a quiet danger. The world could decide that Rachel Green was the limit of what she could be. Jennifer did not reject the role that changed her life. She began testing the boundaries around it. In The Good Girl, she stepped into a world far removed from the brightness of Central Perk. Her character, Justine Last, was a dissatisfied store clerk living inside a marriage and a life that had begun to feel airless. Jennifer stripped away the polished rhythm audiences expected from her. The humor remained, but it was drier, lonelier, and edged with despair. Justine's face did not invite the audience to relax. It asked them to sit with disappointment. The performance revealed that Jennifer could carry stillness, moral uncertainty, and the weight of a woman who could no longer recognize the future she had once imagined. It was one of the first clear signs that Rachel Green had not defined the limits of Jennifer's talent. She continued moving between comedy and drama, but Cake demanded an even greater departure. As Claire Bennett, a woman living with chronic pain and emotional isolation, Jennifer abandoned much of the appearance and charm that had long shaped her public image. The character moved slowly, spoke sharply, and carried suffering in every guarded expression. Jennifer did not ask the audience to admire her. She asked them to remain close to a woman who had become difficult because pain had altered the way she met the world. The performance earned Golden Globe and Screen Actors Guild nominations. More importantly, it proved that Jennifer was willing to make the audience uncomfortable and to remain inside that discomfort without reaching for the warmth that had once made her famous. That instinct eventually moved behind the camera. Through Echo Films, the production company she co-founded, Jennifer gained a place in the conversations that happened before the cameras began rolling. Which stories were worth developing, how a woman's age would shape a character without reducing her, and whether a project offered more than another polished version of the image audiences already knew. The change was quiet at first. Her name still appeared above the title as an actress, but it also began appearing where creative decisions were made. She was no longer standing at the end of the process, waiting to be handed a finished character. She was entering earlier, when the character, the tone, and the risks of the story were still being formed. That authority reached its clearest expression in The Morning Show. When Jennifer returned to series television in 2019, she stepped onto a set that carried an unavoidable echo of her past. Once again, millions would watch her every week. This time, however, she arrived with greater control over the machine surrounding the performance. As executive producer and lead actress, she helped carry a series built around institutional power, public image, aging, ambition, and the private cost of remaining visible. Alex Levy could command a live broadcast while feeling the ground shift beneath her. Her composure was part skill, part armor. Jennifer understood that tension without needing to announce it. She knew what it meant for a familiar face to become public property, and what it cost to keep working while strangers believed familiarity gave them ownership. Yet the importance of The Morning Show reached beyond the parallels between actress and character. Jennifer was helping sustain a major television production, shaping its direction, and carrying responsibility for the world in which Alex existed. There was no Central Perk safety net. No familiar ensemble rhythm could soften the fall. The series asked Jennifer to stand at the center of conflict, involving authority, loyalty, fear, and moral compromise, while also helping guide the project from behind the camera. That was the transformation. Rachel Green had once made Jennifer indispensable to a television phenomenon created around her. With The Morning Show, Jennifer helped build the phenomenon she was being asked to lead. The Friends reunion in 2021 did not erase that evolution. It allowed Jennifer to return to the set that had changed her life without being trapped inside it. Rachel Green remained part of her history, and Jennifer treated that history with gratitude. Yet by then, she had already shown that one beloved character could be both a gift and a beginning. Years earlier, Jennifer had walked through the door of Central Perk and become the woman television could not stop watching. Decades later, she stood behind another camera, helping decide where it would turn and how long it would remain there. Rachel Green was still in the room as memory, affection, and history, but she was no longer the boundary. Jennifer had become the actress who could carry the frame, and the producer with the authority to shape what existed beyond it. Yet the woman who had gained greater control over her career could not control every chapter waiting beyond the spotlight. The same years that brought Jennifer professional freedom also raised quieter questions about love, marriage, and the future she once imagined. Behind the confidence of the actress and producer was still a woman searching for a place where she could be understood apart from the image the world had created for her. One of the most significant relationships of those years began with actor Tate Donovan, who entered Jennifer's life while fame was rapidly changing everything around her. They dated for nearly 3 years, and Jennifer later said she had believed Tate might be the man she would marry. At that point, she was not only building a career, she was also imagining a private future beyond the cameras. Before the world learned to follow every detail of her life, there was still a time when love seemed to belong only to 2 people. When the relationship ended, there was no public scandal, no dramatic accusation, and no single moment that explained everything. What remained was the quieter pain of watching a future, once imagined together, slowly disappear. Then their private ending became entangled with Jennifer's public success. After the breakup, Donovan joined Friends as Joshua, a romantic interest for Rachel Green. On screen, Jennifer and Tate were asked to portray the beginning of a relationship while confronting the end of their own. Millions watched Rachel move toward a new romance, unaware that the 2 actors playing it were still carrying the emotional aftermath of separation. Jennifer later described filming those scenes as extremely difficult because the breakup was still recent. Donovan also recalled the experience as one of the hardest professional situations he had faced. The challenge was not simply pretending to fall in love before a camera. It was returning to the same set, standing across from someone who had once represented a possible future, and performing emotions that real life had already taken away. Friends continued its rise into one of television's greatest successes, while Jennifer and Tate moved forward separately. Their on-screen storyline lasted only briefly, but the reality behind it remains one of the series' most quietly painful chapters. It was not a story of betrayal or public conflict. It was something more ordinary and perhaps more recognizable. 2 people who had once imagined a life together, then had to finish their goodbye under studio lights. For viewers, Rachel Green was beginning another romance. Behind the character, Jennifer Aniston and Tate Donovan were learning how to close one. When Jennifer Aniston met Brad Pitt in 1998, both were already living beneath the bright and unforgiving attention of Hollywood. Their relationship quickly became one of the most watched romances of its era, and in 2000, they married in Malibu before family and friends. To the public, they appeared to represent a rare kind of balance: 2 successful careers, a glamorous partnership, and a future unfolding exactly as expected. Jennifer was still film friends, but she had already begun speaking about the life she hoped would come afterward. Years later, Jennifer would look back on that period as a time when she believed she had more time than she actually did. The future she imagined still felt close enough to reach, and she had no reason to believe that one day the world would ask her to explain why it never arrived. In 2002, she said she wanted to complete the series before turning more fully toward having children. Later, her words suggested that the waiting period was ending. She had spent years building the career she once struggled to enter, and she believed there would still be time for another dream. For a while, that dream remained something she could still imagine becoming real. During the final period of the marriage, Brad filmed Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Angelina Jolie. The connection that developed between them would later become one of Hollywood's most examined relationships. Jennifer never claimed to know or reveal every private detail of what happened during that production, but the public consequences soon became impossible for her to escape. Rumors surrounding Brad and Angelina began to gather around a marriage that was already under strain, turning private uncertainty into entertainment for millions. In January 2005, Jennifer and Brad announced their separation. What had belonged to two people immediately became a public drama, examined through photographs, rumors, and competing explanations. While Jennifer was still absorbing the end of the marriage, the world appeared eager to move on to another story. Images of Brad and Angelina began replacing the partnership Jennifer had once known, and the transition unfolded before an audience that treated every new photograph as another piece of evidence. One of the most painful moments came while the divorce was still unfinished. Brad and Angelina appeared in a magazine spread built around an imagined domestic life surrounded by children. To the public, the photographs were provocative entertainment. For Jennifer, they touched a future she had openly said she wanted. Away from headlines and photographs, Jennifer faced the quieter reality of losing a future she had once imagined. Some losses happen in public. The healing still happens in private. The image of family life that had remained a hope within her marriage was now being presented as a glamorous fantasy around the man she had expected to share that future with. A private loss had become a public picture. Jennifer later acknowledged the anger, hurt, and embarrassment surrounding that period. Those emotions did not require her to turn Angelina into a villain or reduce Brad to one decision. They revealed a more human wound. Jennifer was still mourning one life, while the world had already begun celebrating the appearance of another. She would later look back on the marriage without reducing it to its ending. The relationship had contained love, companionship, and years that mattered. Its failure did not make those years false. Yet the divorce also closed a future she had once imagined within that marriage, and the public soon began attaching its own meaning to what had not happened. The questions moved beyond Brad Pitt. They settled on Jennifer's body and on the children she had never had. Had she waited too long because of friends? Had ambition mattered more than family? Had the marriage ended because she had chosen her career? Those questions were repeated until speculation began to sound like biography. Jennifer's silence left room for strangers to arrange the pieces however they wished. A marriage had ended, no child had arrived, and the public decided it understood the reason. Years later, cameras captured a brief, warm exchange between Jennifer and Brad at an awards ceremony in 2020. The moment drew enormous attention because many people still wanted to return them to an earlier story. What appeared between them, however, seemed quieter than the fantasy surrounding it. Familiarity, respect, and affection between two people who had once shared an important life. The marriage had mattered. Its ending had mattered. Yet neither one held the power to explain everything that came afterward. The public believed it understood why Jennifer's hoped-for family had never arrived. What no one knew was that the most private part of her journey had never entered the headlines at all, and Jennifer would not reveal that truth until many years later. For years, the world believed it understood why Jennifer Aniston had never become a mother. Her career was visible. Her marriages were visible. The absence of children was visible. From those fragments, strangers constructed a simple conclusion. Jennifer had chosen professional success over motherhood. What they could not see was the private struggle taking place beyond interviews, premieres, and magazine covers. In 2022, Jennifer revealed that during her 30s and 40s, she had gone through IVF and tried different approaches in the hope of becoming a mother. She also spoke about wishing someone had advised her earlier to freeze her eggs. By the time she fully understood how quickly that window could narrow, some possibilities could no longer be recovered. Her disclosure changed the meaning of decades of headlines. While magazines had asked why Jennifer did not want children, she had been living through treatments, waiting, hope, and disappointment. While strangers described her as a woman who valued fame more than family, she had been trying to reach a future the public assumed she had rejected. Behind the public image were private appointments, waiting, uncertainty, and moments that never appeared in photographs. Quiet decisions, private conversations, and the long spaces between hope and disappointment. The timing and the most intimate details of those treatments remain Jennifer's. She has not publicly identified every period, every circumstance, or every person connected to that journey. Her revelation should therefore never be used to rewrite her marriage to Brad Pitt or to invent explanations she did not provide. What she chose to say was narrower and more important. She had tried, and the public story portraying her as uninterested in motherhood was false. There was grief in her words. Jennifer understood that greater knowledge about fertility might have given her more options. She could look back and wish someone had spoken to her sooner, before demanding schedules, and the illusion of unlimited time made the future feel less urgent. The regret was not abstract. It belonged to years that could not be returned, and to a possibility that had finally closed. Yet Jennifer refused to describe the rest of her life as a tragedy. By the time she spoke publicly, the long uncertainty had ended. She no longer had to move from one possibility to another, wondering whether another attempt might change everything. The answer was painful, but it was finally an answer. With that ending came a measure of relief. That relief did not erase what she had wanted. It did not make the treatments easier or transform loss into gratitude. It meant that waiting no longer controlled her life. She could stop measuring every new year against the question of whether motherhood might still happen. The deepest injury was not only that Jennifer had been unable to become a mother. It was that strangers had turned that outcome into a judgment about her character. They mistook privacy for indifference, professional success for selfishness, and an unseen struggle for a deliberate choice. When Jennifer finally spoke, she reclaimed more than a missing chapter of her biography. She reclaimed authority over her own body, her own grief, and the meaning of the life she had built. She shared enough to dismantle the false story, while keeping the most intimate details beyond public reach. For decades, the world asked why Jennifer Aniston had never become a mother. The more humane question was why so many people believed they had the right to decide what that absence said about her. Jennifer had wanted motherhood. She had tried for it. She had mourned what did not happen. Yet one private loss could never become the final measure of an entire life. Yet Jennifer's story did not end with a dream that never arrived. The years that followed were not about replacing what she lost, but about discovering what remained. The woman who had spent years being defined by what she did not have slowly began learning that a life could still hold meaning in unexpected forms. In 2008, Jennifer Aniston began dating musician John Mayer. Their relationship moved through periods of separation and reconciliation before ending the following year. Jennifer did not turn the breakup into a public dispute, and the relationship remained a brief chapter in a life already crowded by scrutiny. A more lasting partnership began in 2011 after Jennifer worked with actor and writer Justin Theroux on Wanderlust. By then, she had learned how quickly romance could become public property. Their relationship developed more quietly, shaped by companionship, humor, and a shared understanding of life inside the entertainment industry. They married in 2015 during a private ceremony at their California home. The marriage belonged to a more settled period in Jennifer's life. It carried fewer grand expectations than the relationships that had defined her earlier years, and seemed rooted in friendship rather than spectacle. In 2018, Jennifer and Justin announced their separation. They described themselves as close friends, whose life as a couple had reached an end, and they refused to turn that ending into another public battle. There were no competing accusations, and no effort to make the years together appear false. Justin later continued speaking about Jennifer with warmth, and their connection remained part of both their lives. For Jennifer, the quiet aftermath mattered. After years in which strangers had studied every romantic ending for blame, this marriage closed without becoming a spectacle. There was no dramatic final scene, only two people stepping away from a shared home while leaving the friendship intact. Today, at 57, Jennifer Aniston holds a kind of authority that fame alone could never provide. She can choose which stories carry her name, where her energy belongs, and which parts of her life remain beyond public reach. The morning show has become the clearest expression of that change. Jennifer returned to series television in 2019 as both Alex Levy and an executive producer. She was no longer arriving only to perform a role already shaped for her. Through the series and Echo films, she had entered the earlier conversations when characters were still being formed and the direction of a project could still change. By 2026, the morning show had already been renewed for a 5th season, confirming the distance Jennifer had traveled from the young actress, who once depended on a single opportunity. She now helps carry a major production from the inside. Lola Vi, the hair care company she founded in 2021, extended that independence beyond acting. It gave Jennifer another place to build rather than simply appear. Yet, the present chapter of her life has been defined as much by absence as by creation. Her father, John Aniston, died in November 2022 at the age of 89. Their relationship had carried the distance and uncertainty that began when Jennifer was a child. Time did not rewrite those early years, but it allowed affection to survive beside them. Months before his death, Jennifer honored his long television career as he received a Daytime Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award. After he was gone, she shared photographs of them from different stages of life. Those images held the whole contradiction of their bond. The father whose absence had once confused a little girl had remained part of the woman she became. There had been hurt, distance, admiration, and love. Now there would be no more time to alter the balance between them. Jennifer was left with what had been repaired, what had not, and the tenderness that endured anyway. A year later, Matthew Perry died. To the public, he would always be Chandler Bing. To Jennifer, he was one of 5 people who had walked beside her through a life almost no one else could fully understand. The Friends cast had survived sudden fame, exhausting schedules, private struggles, marriages, separations, and the strange experience of being remembered as a single unit long after the final episode ended. Their bond had become family through repetition, showing up, staying close, and carrying one another through years the audience never saw. Jennifer's grief for Matthew revealed that Friends had left her far more than a career. It had given her people who knew the purpose behind the familiar face. John belonged to the family Jennifer was born into. Matthew belonged to the family she found. Their deaths, only a year apart, placed those 2 forms of love beside each other. One complicated by childhood, the other built through adulthood. Both left empty spaces that success could not fill. The people who remain have therefore taken on even greater meaning. Courtney Cox and Jennifer's longtime friends continue to form the private circle around her. Her rescue dogs bring quieter companionship, while ordinary routines, cooking, exercising, and spending time at home, protect the peace fame once made difficult to keep. These relationships rarely make headlines. Their value comes from endurance. Jennifer has also shared limited glimpses of her relationship with author and wellness coach Jim Curtis. After decades in which the public treated access to her private life as a right, she has chosen a different rhythm. She reveals enough to acknowledge happiness, then closes the door before intimacy becomes entertainment. Privacy is no longer the silence of a child who does not know what to say. It is the boundary of a woman who knows exactly what belongs to her. At 57, Jennifer's life cannot be understood through one role, one marriage, or one missing milestone. It is visible in the work she now helps shape, the people she has mourned, the friendships that stayed, and the home she protects from the noise outside. The world spent years searching for the part that would finally make her life complete. Jennifer appears to have stopped searching for anyone else's answer. If Jennifer Aniston's story has changed the way you think about success, motherhood, and what makes a life complete, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which of her roles has stayed with you the longest, and whether her journey reminded you of a struggle that others once misunderstood. Please like this video as a quiet tribute to Jennifer.